So today on the Live on Form podcast, we are joined by Jay Morton. Jay, how are you?
Very good, Phil. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. So I guess we've got to start at the beginning, as I always do with a lot of guests, because I think you've got a fascinating story. You've got a real pedigree of a background, and I think a lot of people could relate to a lot of the stuff that's sort of in there and that I know about. I'm sure we'll dig in stuff that I don't know about. But obviously, I've got the history where obviously special forces, started in the military, didn't do so well at school from what I gather, or weren't terribly interested in school. So
I don't think a lot of people like us did, right?
So let's talk about school. So tell me about Jay when Jay was younger. What was the script for you when you were younger? Were you sporty? Were you driven? Were you academic? Where were you?
I probably had a lot of energy and no direction as to where to put that energy. And the thing with school is I don't think a lot of schools, especially state schools, are geared up to direct kids' energy into things that would interest them. So you end up just, for me, it was hanging around probably with the wrong people or just doing things that young kids do, right? Drinking cider, throwing stones at windows, trying to
bit of context there. You are from the north, right? Same as me.
Yeah, Preston. Started playing rugby around age 14, played till I joined the army. That was rugby league. Again, I kind of wish that there was martial arts or something like that I was exposed to when I was at a younger age, just because, you've got all this energy, and school is, for someone who's got, like, still now, I'm quite a energetic kind of person, and I kind of felt, looking back retrospectively at school, to be sat in a classroom listening to something at that point I'm not really interested in, because all I'm interested in is burning this energy off however I wanted to.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of the wrong system. So for me, lessons like PE were the best lesson, because you got to run around and play sport, but at the same time, you got to learn about why you've got all this energy and how to use it and how to better your body for the sport that you're doing, or just life in general.
Cool. So were you competitive? Were you kind of one of these people who wanted to win at everything, or?
Yeah, I'm silently competitive. You'd never know, and I'm a great loser, but internally
it rips you apart.
Internally, I beat myself up and stew. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, school was kind of a bit of a, it was just a thing, right? You got through it and had all this energy, and then you had rugby league. So at what point did you decide you were going to direct that towards the military? Is there a background there? Is there a history in the family? Often, military stuff, it's normally, your dad or your granddad or somebody was in the military. Was there something that pointed you down that route, or was it, just a personal choice? Or?
No, it was, I didn't come from a family of people in the military, but my granddad served in the military, but that was, back in the World War II. I think at the time I kind of left school and went to college to study sports science. And again, there's probably the same reasons why I didn't enjoy school as why I didn't enjoy college. I lasted a year and came out. And at the time when I was in college, I was doing a job where I was getting paid quite well. And at the time it was, right, well, I can stay in college and, not really enjoying college and be bored of being in a classroom doing loads of coursework, or I can leave and just do this job and get paid more, right? At me, where I was aged 16, 17, 18, the money sounded way better than being bored in a classroom. So I chose the money route. And obviously that was a job that was never going to go anywhere. And at the time I had a schoolmate that I still kept in touch with, who left school and went and joined the army and ended up in the paras. And he served in 3 para and still does now. And he used to come back off leave and we'd meet up and go for beers. And yeah, he just the way he explained it and the stories that he'd come out with, and the things that he was doing whilst he was in the military just appealed to me. And even when I left school, I had a drive to join the military. I wanted to join the Marines at the time. And it's like one of those things, right? You don't really know at school why you want to be an astronaut or why you want to be a fireman. You just do, right?
Yeah.
You don't know the intellectual reason, or you don't know the factual reason of why it is that you want to do those things. You just get drawn to what that, what a fireman looks like or what someone in the military looks like. So I guess it was that. It was, the military life looked good. I guess at the time there was no real wars going on. Afghanistan hadn't kicked off at that point. You were kind of on the come down from the Gulf Wars, from Gulf War II. Yep. And yeah, it just, 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid who had bags of energy, going away and, getting paid to be around a group of lads in a team. Military itself, being in the army looked like a pretty, it looked like you were going to go away and do good stuff and learn new skills and be a part of this team, and at the same time get paid and be in different countries and travel. And so I guess all those reasons just really lined up for me wanting to be in the military. And I think I was 18, 19. And again, I didn't want to just join the military and go into be a driver or an engineer or join an infantry unit. I either wanted to go in the Marines or the Paras. And my mate Stu was a para in 3 para. So obviously he convinced me that the Marines are all shit and crap hats at that time. And
yeah, there tends to be a bit of banter between the Paras and the Marines, isn't there?
Yeah, I obviously believed him. And joined up for the Paras. And I went into P Company in Captric, and that was me. Military career started.
And you were there, for Paras was 4 years, was it? Was that right?
Yeah, 4 years in the Paras. And again, I count myself quite lucky to have joined at a time when, we're on this, post Gulf War was tethering off, and I joined, and the year after that I joined, we deployed out to Iraq, and it was a 3-month tour. Pretty, nothing really happened. I think the most dangerous thing that happened, we got led into an ambush, but we ended up getting out of it, and then we got told the next day. It was pretty sketchy, to be fair. Yeah. But at the time, it was, we got out of it, got back, but there was no bullets flying up, bombs or anything like that. And then, we were on that Iraq tour, and it was in the media that the Americans were going to go and invade Afghanistan or go back over to Afghanistan, and obviously we do everything they do. So 6 months, I think 6 months from coming home from Iraq, we deployed out to Afghan in 2006, and then I guess that became my military life from that point. Then was every 2 years post that 2006 was an Afghan tour.
And how long do you spend out there at the time? Is that
6 months?
So you do 6 months, and then you come back for.
Yeah, you do. You'll do 6 months. You'll have a 2-week break in between that 6 months, and then obviously in 3 para you come back. You probably have, we ended up with probably about 8 weeks of leave interplaced, and then you start training again for whatever your role is at that time, whether it's like a reactionary force or I can't remember what the roles were back in 3 para. I think you've got like the airborne reaction force, which was at a standby to deploy to any country in the world wherever it kicked off.
Yep.
And then you'd have a period of downtime, period of training, and then you'd start building up for the next tour, and that was 2008. And then I kind of did 2 tours of Afghan whilst in 3 para, and then on that second tour, that was when my kind of, I'd grown up a little bit. I was probably about 23, 24. Yeah, about 24. Grown up a little bit, and the second tour wasn't as exciting or wasn't as, there's a thrill of being, shot at whilst you're with a group of what you consider some of the best men and some of your best friends and some of the best men you've worked alongside. And that 2008 tour, I guess, again, I say this with gratitude that it didn't deliver, right? Because it could have been way different to what my experience was. And you talk about guys getting blown up by IEDs and all that kind of stuff. We didn't see any of that. So like grateful for that, but at the same time, you want to develop yourself and you want to progress your career as a professional soldier. And the next spot to do that is within the special forces.
Yeah, I guess it's it's like training for a sport. Turn up to the event isn't happening, right? So you've refined these skills and refined these abilities to do something, and then you get there and there's nobody asking you to do it, right? I guess that is kind of a bit of a letdown to some degree, right?
Yeah, and it's one of those. It's less of a letdown. It's more just I was grateful for that tour, right? Because we didn't lose anyone. We had a few little fights, which were great. So we got our fix, but grateful that we didn't lose anyone. But at the same time, you want to test yourself as a soldier.
Yeah.
And I remember that 2006 tour. That was heavy. We were fighting every day. Literally going out on the ground, getting in scraps, fighting, and then coming back, and then
you're liberally saying scraps like it's it's a sort of a brawl in a playground in Preston, but it's
some spots
when we're talking
that look
scraps,
like Preston.
It's a tad more extreme than probably scrapping, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we had some good times, and again, like we lost some people, which is potentially some of the lowest points that you'll ever, or it is the lowest that you'll ever be in your military career. And I remember going on that 2008 tour, and just before I left, I went and saw my parents, and then drove back down to Colchester to fly out to Afghan. And I just remember thinking, like, fuck, like I might not come back from this tour.
Yeah,
this is 24 years old or 23 years old. Just I nearly, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't shed a tear walking away from my parents.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's always like the mindset aspect that I guess anybody who hasn't served finds it tricky to get. I mean, I was never in the military. I know I've got tons of friends who are in the military. I've got tons of friends who are in the special forces, and it's that mindset of, once you get to that point where it isn't, you're not turning up at a rugby game and expecting to either lose or win, and you're going to be devastated if you lose. It's kind of, you've got this massive thing on the line. And obviously, with what's been going on, it's a slightly different scenario, but people are now questioning mortality, right? So you would get on that plane or, boat or whatever it was, and you'd question mortality, right? You'd be going, so how do you deal with that? Do you just get on with it?
Yeah, I think that's the thing about the military, right? You can't just turn around and say that you don't want to do it. But at the same time, I don't know. Yeah, you just do it because that's what you signed up for, right? You don't get into base jumping and then before every jump think about that this could be your last jump and what that means to you. You just base jump because that's what you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And it's the same in the military.
Which I believe you're very skilled at, no?
Not base jumping. I can jump, I can parachute, yeah, but not base.
Do you not think you could? I reckon you could.
I reckon
you got some skills there. I reckon you got some skills there.
I could, but I'd definitely have to refine those skills to jump off a cliff or a crane or something. I've been with some mates doing base jumping before, and it's like it's a weird sport as well, right? Because if you go skydiving, you turn up to a DZ, you're probably going to be with your mates. You talk about what you're going to do in the jump, whether it's meetups or whatever, like bit of tracking. You jump, you have a laugh about that. You come out, you talk about it, you do another one, and that's your day done. I've been with mates base jumping, and it's like, right, mate, we'll meet at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. We'll drive down to this antenna in the middle of nowhere, and it's just me and him, right? And I'm not base jumping. I'm just there because I find it interesting. I'm, going to hold his med pack at the bottom in case he hits the ground at terminal velocity. So we like
mates do.
Yeah, like mates do, right?
Like mates do. Yeah, I'm there. I'm all right. Got splints and stuff.
Plaster. We sneak into this antenna. That's there's no epic scenes, right? There's no beautiful views. We climb over this gate. He puts a a rug over the barbed wire. We jump the fence. He climbs up to the top of this antenna. Bear in mind, it's still dark because, you know, if he gets seen, people will call the police. He pops off this antenna, pulls his parachute, lands next to me. We pack up and go. I'm just like, what do you get from that? Like,
and what I'm guessing, this is seconds, right? Because base jumps are
less than
typically
seconds, man.
it's literally you deploy your parachute straight away, right?
Yeah. So for this antenna, this is an antenna in the UK. I'm pretty sure.
Which won't be very high, right? I'm guessing.
No, I'm pretty sure, right? So there's different ways, right? You can either put some parachute cord onto like parachute cord, snap cord. So it exerts a certain amount of pressure and then snaps. And you can tie that to your drone chute, which pulls your main chute out. And then as you jump off, all your parachute just pulls out underneath you, like a static line parachute.
Right.
Or sometimes if it's low, they'll hold the drone in the hand, and as they jump off, they throw the drone to the side, and that just pulls the parachute off. So it would have had to have been one of those. It wouldn't have been free fall at all.
Pull. It was.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been like out, pull.
I mean, when you say antenna, what's freaking me out there a little bit is I'm just thinking about all the shit that's hanging off it.
Yeah.
Thinking, what if a parachute catches on something, or you know, there's a lot of like metal girders sticking around and stuff.
Yeah. So there's one side that you can do it at, and that's it.
Right.
But like then he packs up, we pack up, we get back in the van, and that's it. We drive back to
he sits in the passenger seat like this.
Not even that. He was like, yeah, he is so like, just
really.
Yeah, he's a little bit like, and I go and meet him, and he's just like, yeah, it went well. I'm happy with that one. Just because I think
this extreme stuff fascinates me. I mean, it's
same base jumpers. So a lot of people can get into skydiving, right? It's a relatively easy sport to get into. Your progression is, anyone can do it. You don't need to be physically fit. You don't need to, be able to run a long distance or be strong. Like anyone can throw themselves out of a plane. So long as that's what they want to do and learn how to skydive. Base jump takes that to a next level, and the margins for error are way higher because you'll die essentially. So you generally find a lot of base jumpers are intelligent people, really intelligent people, like a lot of intelligent people anyway, but doctors, lawyers, all that kind of stuff will get into it because there's something about, I don't know, the intellectual mind that wants to find out, that wants to.
Well, I think you're always, it's like physical, or isn't it? You're always chasing something. I think if you got physical and if you got neural attributes, and if you're very neurally busy, I guess, cognitively busy, I'd be like, look, I need an outlet for this that isn't spreadsheets, that isn't, whatever it might be. And I get that. I sort of understand that you're looking for the next sort of cognitive thrill, I guess, isn't it?
And it's almost that switch off as well.
Yeah.
Because
at that moment you can't think about anything else, right?
Yeah, that point that you commit to jumping off that cliff, it all goes quiet. And that might be something that someone's searching for.
So do you think that was something you searched for in the military? Because obviously you talk about, that part of the thrill is, you get these scraps, right? And in that, I guess you're not thinking about checking your Facebook feed, and you're not checking, you know what I mean? And there is this whole, I refer to it in my last podcast, it's just a recent book I read, Cal Newport, Deep Work. I don't know whether you've.
Right, no.
So he talks about.
Good.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, great read. Talks about kind of people who take themselves off and basically focus on one thing. And as a society, we're very poor at doing this. We're very poor at switching off and focusing just on one thing. And obviously, being in the military, when something kicks off, something happens, right? You've got no choice. You've got to go into this kind of deep work mode where there is only one thing on your mind, and you are completely and utterly focused in that. Because if you switch off for a second, it's life or death, right? And I think that's kind of the fascinating mindset I get about the whole military stuff. And then you go to that nth degree, and you go to that next level where, the paras is kind of that next level of this. And then obviously you went from the paras into the SAS, right? So how did that happen? So I'm picturing you right now getting kind of pulled on tour and then coming back for a few weeks and then pulled on tour. And go, at what point there do you get opportunity to go, right, I'm gonna step up to this next, set of, I don't know how you class it, this next military grade almost.
Yeah.
Is it somebody drafts you? Does somebody come up to you and go, Jay, look, you're talented, you're really good at what you do. We think you should try out for this, or is it, how does it work?
So you can volunteer. And at the time that I joined, there's no set criteria, but you've got to have sign off from higher up in your unit. So yeah, at the time we were deployed in Afghan 2008, and I was probably still quite young. I was probably 24 years old, 25 years old, and yeah, we used to spot the SBS lads going out on ops, and they had two CH-47 helicopters. They used to fly out of a camp in Afghan, and you used to see them come back. And they're a different kind of animal, right? A different kind of pack. And yeah, at the time, I just remember my platoon sergeant Dan Jarvie. I was his driver, and he just turned around to me and he was like, "You should go for selection." And at the time, I don't know, 24 years old. Like I was like, just like, I'll never pass that. And he was like, "No, you should." And there was quite a tight group of people on that. I mean, you do, right? You go away on these operations for 6 months and you form some of the best, strongest friendships that you'll ever experience. And like there was loads of lads going, yeah, I'll go on selection, we'll go on selection. And there was probably about 25 lads that was like, right, I'm coming off this operation, I'm going to go on selection. And 9 of us eventually from 3 para went on selection. And yeah, you've got to volunteer, but it's got to have sign off from higher up. And yeah, like I think.
And those 9 guys were all like your friends, people that you'd sort of been serving with, right? Or these
and some of them, yeah, these were all 3 para lads on this tour,
right?
And some of them, older and more experienced. That some of them that had been on selection previous and come off for certain reasons.
Yeah.
And at the time, they were like the oracles in the unit because they'd been on selection, even if they'd have got to like 2 weeks into the hills phase, which is the first phase, and they came back because they pulled themselves off, they voluntarily withdrawn. They were still the oracles and the heroes because you looked up to them and you were like, whoa, that guy's been on selection. What you didn't realize is there's like guys like before them or guys that have been on selection and passed, but no one talks about those guys, right? It's the guys that come back that are the oracles.
Of course, because you're still in contact with them, right?
And they know everything, right? Yeah. They know everything about selection, and obviously don't know everything about selection because they didn't know enough to pass. But so yeah, we had a few of those guys on with us, and yeah, like out of 9, I was the only one that got through in the end. And yeah, you go on selection for 6 months, and then again during the 6 months you create some of the best friends that you'll ever, or the strongest friendships that you'll ever have, because you're all going through this adversity at the same time. And you get to the end of that and you turn up at your troop in the SAS, and you're back to being the smallest fish in the biggest pond again.
That's mad. And let's dig into a little bit about sort of selection, because obviously you people will know you from the Who Dares Win show, right? So you went on that in what year was it? 2000
last year.
Was it? Yeah,
20.
Yeah, 2020. And you went on kind of a bit stealth because you were from what I gather, you were a contestant. I didn't see it. You were a contestant who was kind of undercover and feeding back to the main guys who were sort of in charge. And then midway through, you sort of came out and said, "Look, I'm," So what was all that about? So tell me a little bit about that experience. And
yeah, it's I mean, like, fair play to the people that do that show, as in the recruits, because that, I did it for 6 days, and easily by day 4 I could have just walked out.
But is that because you knew it was
Yeah.
It was
It's
kind of
'cause
staged for you, right?
yeah, and I knew that, like, I had nothing to prove on that course.
So it
I
was,
had not
so
I
even for
just
you, it was still tough, right? So it is genuinely right for somebody who's
the
came
hardest
out
thing
the
you ever do.
SAS, who's been through full selection, which I would imagine is way more brutal than that is, and you still found that quite challenging, right?
Not challenging. I
No,
didn't find it challenging at all.
bored,
Tough?
bored.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. It was, I mean, I could I
Would
could
you
have done
stick
it
a
with
man
my eyes. I could have
shouting?
done it with my eyes closed, right? I
Like
really
stop
could
shouting
have.
in your hand, please.
Yeah. If you'd have tied my hands together, blindfolded me, like, I could have still done it. But it's just it's the it's just the bullshit, right?
Yeah.
It's getting woken up at 4 a.m. and not having enough food to give you the calories for the day, and like the physical stuff I probably enjoyed because that was my escapism, right? It was running
Yeah.
up a hill with a log on your back. It was like, that's not
Do you,
fun, but
did you have
that
to
you
hold
can get
anything
into
back at
that.
that point? So when you were doing these physical tasks, right? Obviously, I would imagine you was you probably still are right now, but you were still conditioned at that level for
Mm.
you could just step back into the special forces, right?
hmm
So were you holding stuff back? Were you running up these hills, looking at these, like going, I need to slow down a little bit here. I need to slow down. I need to ease off a little bit.
Yeah, it was trying to find a right balance of, I didn't want to come out as a DS and everyone turn around and go, no chance. That guy was struggling on the
Terrible.
log race. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so it was about kind of just trying to remain the grey man so that no one really suspected me whilst I was a recruit. But at the same time, when I did come out as a DS, everyone would turn around and go, yeah, you could see that, but you just couldn't see it at the same time,
Yeah,
right?
when he's
Because
having a full blown conversation going up this hill, logging his back with me, and
yeah,
I'm breathing out my ass, and he's
yeah,
going,
yeah,
yeah. So hills very often with logs and stuff. He's like, yeah. He's trying to slow down and pretend it's easy, whilst chatting
yeah.
away to everybody else who's absolutely can't gasp for air, right?
Yeah. Well, that day I just ended up shouting at everyone because I was just, yeah, I got so into it. I just ended up shouting at everyone because just to sort their shit out pretty much because they were,
I will go back and watch it, by the way.
yeah, yeah,
I'm going to go back and see what this was all about. So
yeah.
that's kind of a depiction. And again, I don't want to water that down or anything like that, because it is, I know people who've been on it. We actually interviewed one of the girls that had been on it just fairly recently, and it's tough, right? For somebody who's
Mm.
just general public, typically the people who have some kind of physical attributes and normally do a bit of fitness, blah blah blah. It's tough for them. So what's that like in comparison to actual selection? So 6 months, and all the stuff I've read, and again, you can either support this or not, but about special forces around the world, right? And everybody looks at the SAS as the pinnacle, right? So Marines, Navy SEALs, all the kind of Russian special forces, all of these ones. When you talk and see anything, and obviously you don't know everything, right? You never will, I guess. But everybody goes, the SAS is the pinnacle of this, and it is the hardest one to get into. It's the toughest one for selection. It's the toughest one to be in. And ultimately, all the other special forces look to them as kind of this. Again, you used the word oracle before, as this is the gold standard of what special forces are about. So, what was that 6 months like?
Yeah, and so the British Special Forces are the original Special Forces.
Yeah,
So they were the first ones. So if you go back in history, you had the Long Range Desert Group, which then became, which Sterling started, which then became the SAS. And then we realized that we've got to select people from the military to, be in these special units and put them through a selection process. And then obviously, and I'm, again, I'm not like a factual ninja, so some of this might be wrong, but the gist is right. Americans then looked at it and went, yeah, that's something that we probably need to do. And I don't think Americans started their special forces units till, I want to say 80s, 70s or 80s. And there was an operation out in one of the deserts, which I'm probably going to get all the facts wrong, which led to them starting their special forces, which is Delta and Dev. So yeah, if you look at the history, the SAS was the original special forces. Obviously, you had the SBS, which was a detachment of Marines which were sent out to do specifically special operations, which then became the SBS. And then, you know, Aussies, Kiwis, the rest of the units were formed around, you know, they all went, right, well, how are the Brits doing it? Let's look at how they're doing it and take that model to respective countries. So yeah, that is why, you know, still to this day, it is seen as, you know, definitely one of the best and one of the pinnacles of what the special forces are around the world. Whether that still stands today, you can argue and say that the Americans,
I'm sure the Americans would argue it.
Yeah, well, I mean, what America has in its power is a lot more people and a lot more money. So you know, you can far outweigh the amount of numbers that they've got. You know, man for man, does that mean they've got a better class of soldier? You know, questionable. Money's always a factor when you go to war, right? The more money you've got, probably the better you're going to be. So that's a factor. But yeah, go back to selection. Yeah, you know, taking the show SAS Who Dares Wins an actual selection, there's no comparables. You know, the show is made to take people that have never soldiered before, that are just normal civilians, and put them through some arduous challenges and sleep deprive them and shout at them and put them all through all these series of different stresses to see who cracks and see who lasts till the end, and that's your winner, or whatever you want to call it. Whereas, you know, 6 months on special forces selection, you essentially want to take, you want people to pass, right? There's no part of selection that is designed, it's not set up for you to fail, it's set up for you to still be there at the end. Whether you think you can or whether you are at the end is totally up to you. Because essentially, you know, the special forces wants people to join. It needs people in there, but it needs the right caliber of people. So you're not looking to fail people by shouting at them or putting them, you know, doing challenges which are totally inappropriate to what your job role is going to be when you're in the special forces. So you know, there's certain elements of it during that 6 months. So the first part is general navigation and physical fitness and robustness, so the hills phase. So you have, you know, a backpack on that's got anything from you know, 45 pounds up to, I think, about 70 pounds you're carrying on the last day, plus a weapon, plus all your water and food. And you're set off every day on a navigational exercise, which probably takes you over around anything from 25 to 30 kilometers as the crow flies. So in a straight line, you're obviously going to cover by foot a lot more of that distance. And that's testing your physical robustness and your navigational skills, right? So can this guy travel 30 kilometers in a set amount of time, carrying this amount of kit, right? And there's no part of that which is like, you know, let's shout at this person or let's put him under any extra stress. It's almost just like that the instructors are, you know, we call them DS, so directing staff, they're all SAS or SBS soldiers that have done their job for you know, anything from 4 to 8 years. They have zero interest in you at that point. Zero interest. They're not, you don't even come up on their radar. They are just there to be at a checkpoint, to take your number and send you on the next direction. There is no conversation, there's nothing, right?
They're not shouting, telling you things they know about your past. And
at that point, you know, you start with maybe 150 soldiers on selection, and the hills phase is probably going to get rid of, you know, 75% of those.
Really?
So at that point, so you've got 75% of those soldiers turning up at that checkpoint aren't going to be there at the end of that 3 weeks. So you think you're a DS, you have no interest in the people that are on. You're not even looking at who's potentially going to be there at the end. You're not even looking at any other attribute, because selection will select those soldiers to be there at the end, because they can either do those navigational exercises within that time frame and be there at the end or not. That's it. And then you get rid of that you end that 3 weeks and you've probably got, from 150, you might have 50 people. Some courses might even have 25 people. Depends on, you know, if you have if your hills phase is torrential weather and it's been pissing it down with rain, you're probably gonna have less people, or snow, or ice or whatever it is, you're
Yeah.
potentially going to have less people at the end of that hills phase. And there has been some jungle phases that have started with, 20 people or whatever. And but 50 is a good number. And at that point, the DS are probably going to be going, right, I'm way more interested in those 50 people now that we've got rid of all the shit that just turned up for the sake of it. I'm going to be looking at those 50 people to see who's going to be there at the end, because now is this next 6 weeks of what's called the jungle, where you deploy to the jungle. I want to actually see how these 50 people soldier and whether they are worthy enough to soldier next to me and soldier in the teams of the special forces.
Yeah.
And that's what that 6 weeks in the jungle is all about. And then generally at the end of that, you will have a team of, it could be anything from 10 to 20 people that are generally going to be there right at the end of selection. So that's then a training phase of, right, what does this soldier need to learn and need to train to make him from being a green soldier in the military to being a special forces soldier. And that's what the rest of selection will do. And there's no shouting, there's no pushing you into water when you don't want to go in. There's, they're very focused on, especially on the hills phase, on giving you the right amount of calories and on giving you, high quality calories, on making sure that you're well fed, well rested, that all those things are taken care of so that you can go out that day and be at the best possible chance of you completing that navigational exercise.
And I'm guessing the mental aspect of it, which is obviously the stuff that's kind of emblazoned on the Who Dares Win show, right? You're trying to mentally break people, and that's that kind of shouting and screaming or whatever it might be, or belittling people and things like this. I guess the environment takes care of that, right?
Yeah, like selection does, right? You don't need to put people under any other stresses. Selection is hard enough itself.
And I'm guessing, out in the hills and then in the jungle and, where do they take you jungle wise? You allowed to say?
You go out to Brunei.
So it's hot,
Asia.
humid, horrendous, wet.
Yeah, the jungle is potentially the worst terrain to operate in as a soldier. The jungle and the Arctic are probably the two worst. I'd say the jungle is probably the worst because you are, during the day you're constantly wet, so you're constantly sweating, which requires you to, hydrate yourself sufficiently, manage your body temperature so that, if you do find that you're running around a lot, be cautious that, and this is after actually voluntary withdrawal of people, so you can actually turn around and say that I don't want to be on this course anymore. The second biggest kind of thing that people will come off the jungle for is heat exhaustion, because you're running around that much that your core temperature just raises up, and it's very common for you to go through a day and 2 people have been heli evacuated out of the jungle because their core temperatures raised too much.
And there's a lot of stuff about kind of hygiene, right? Is that a lot of people get issues because of hygiene. They don't keep themselves clean, and feet are always a big one, aren't they?
Yeah, like all those things, because you think throughout the day your skin's constantly wet, so your feet are constantly wet, your hands are constantly wet. Only when you sleep at night. So the great thing about the jungle is, as soon as it goes dark, it's too dangerous to keep moving around. So you have to sleep, you have to set your hammock up. And at that point, you put a full set of dry clothing on, dry socks, dry boots, and get in your hammock to sleep. That's the only time that you'll be dry. So at that point, all your feet start to dry out, and your toes and your toenails. And like hygiene's big. I mean, you've basically just got to stop. You just basically got to keep yourself from being injured, right? Injuries definitely up there. Twisted ankles, like broken fingers, whatever it is. Stop yourself from overheating. And also, like you've got that many different things, like different insects and bites and worms, and you literally finish that 6 weeks. And I just remember taking my trousers off and my legs. There wasn't one bit of kind of white skin that I could see on my legs. It was just all bites and blisters and worms tracking up the inside of your
those
skin.
Little things chip away at you, right? I guess
Yeah,
that
over
thing,
6 weeks.
yeah, lying in bed at night, and you're just itching head to foot, and you've
Yeah.
got blisters, and you've got and yeah, I mean it's
Degrades you over time, right? It degrades your mind, and for the last 2 weeks, you don't sleep in a hammock. You sleep on the floor because you are on. So you're on what's called hard routine. So you don't eat, you don't have a hot meal, you don't have a hot drink. You literally, it's so if you're so close to the enemy, you go on hard routine because obviously you can't.
yeah, you
You have
can't
to be
set the time.
reactionary, right, to
Yeah.
what's going on. So you sleep on the floor. So I remember waking up and touched my lip, and I was like, oh no, my lip's swollen up. I wonder what the hell that is. I was like licking it. It's still pitch black, and it's a leech just
It
been
was a
sat on my
leech.
lip. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had massive lips like the chicks have now. That's all you need, a leech.
Like that's on trend right now. Yeah.
Yeah. I might go
Wow.
back, just get a leech lip.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. So post military, so you've came out of the military. I mean, we could dig into this story a million times over. I'm sure we could go into all the stuff in selection. I mean, it fascinates me, just the whole mental and physical challenge that you put under, and what kind of duress the body's put under, and obviously how you mentally go with that. I mean, mentally, did you go into a lot of dark places? Was it, do you start questioning your own sanity? Do you start, at the points there where you start having delusions, or does it get to that extreme?
No, but I'm sure people do. I'm not that. I like to think that I feel in my element in those periods, in the hard times, and maybe that's just from being in the paras and being exposed to Afghan and fighting so early on. No, I kind of probably take strength in those moments, and I think most special forces soldiers are probably the same.
Yeah.
When it gets, when the times get so low and so tough, and you've run out of water, run out of food, and you're still stuck in the desert in contact, in baking hot heat. That's when special forces soldiers will come into their own, because that's the part of the job where they feel alive, and they've probably got the most energy, and what would crumble a normal man, they feel energetic and alive in those moments, right? That's the difference.
I'd be interested to see if there was, obviously, I'm sure there's been stuff done with, sort of psychological studies of soldiers that have performed at that level, because all the guys that I know that have reached kind of SAS level, SBS, etc., etc. It's funny because they all have a very, very similar demeanor and sort of mannerisms, and there's just something about them all that is very, very similar, and they seem very kind of at peace with everything. I mean, I'm sure that people aren't all the time, and obviously PTSD and I'm sure affects a huge amount, but all the guys that I know and have come across all seem very kind of calm and very reserved. And I guess that's going back to that original point that you said about, I wish there was martial arts available to me. Because obviously when you're a kid, martial arts teaches this, I remember this kid at school who was just wild, just literally every day there's, and that was an energy thing, but it was also, he was a little bit of a nasty little shit. And he would just go around beating people up, blah, blah, blah. And went and started martial arts. So everybody's like, oh no, this is going to get worse. and it calmed him right down. It was amazing. It was like all of a sudden, all this crazy energy that he was trying to project somewhere and didn't know where to project it. And obviously he was quite angry about stuff, or, and I believe he had a load of stuff going on at home, and that kind of was why he was always angry about stuff. But what he did is he focused all this in. So he was relieving all his anger. So he was going to, he's hitting pads and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, he's also learning this key aspect of discipline, right? Which is obviously something in the military you learn very quickly, is that you've got superiors, you've got people above you that you listen to, you look to. You mentioned the word oracle before. You got these people that you look up to all the time and you aspire to be, and then you get there, and then it's the next person, right? And it's just this gradual sort of progression through that thing. And I guess that's that discipline aspect that sort of you touched on earlier about, martial arts. So do you think out of that, what are the positive sort of things mentally that you think you've now taken from the military into your life now and dragged in, you know, your mindset, et cetera, et cetera? What is there, do you think, that you've really harnessed and been able to utilize now?
Do you know, one of the biggest things is I find that what most people that haven't, you know, had any military life or, you know, been to war or whatever you want to call it, I find that people get worked up over so little that, you know, it's people waste so much energy over worrying over things that have never happened, or you know, just gossip over shit that's so irrelevant and small. I find that, you know, the level of what people worry at is really a thing that I noticed when I got out, because, you know, I tend not to worry over the smallest of detail, and it, you know, it's less about wasting energy on worrying and more about just finding a solution to what you're actually worrying, if you're worrying, or what the problem is. So that's kind of the biggest thing psychologically. I think external to that, the military, you know, coming out, it's given me, you know, I have a drive to be able to be the best version of myself, in whether that's a business element, whether that's a physical element, whether that's a mental element, and whether the special forces gave me that or not, I don't know, but I definitely think that they pointed me in the right direction. Having, you know, reached the top of your game in the military, and being able to use those skills and experience in, you know, a vast array of different operations whilst I was still serving. So yeah, I mean, overall, it's given me a you know, I feel an advantage in terms of an outlook on life, and I'm also grateful for all the, you know, all the bad shit, you know, that you see whilst you're in the military. You know, makes you, you know, made me definitely tenfold appreciate just the smaller things in life now I'm out.
And I think that's, I mean, that's a great explanation of it. I think, you know, and that I think sort of pinpoints what I was trying to get at with the people that I know who are ex-military, especially serving at the, you know, special force level, where they have this kind of, you know, this outlook where they don't stress about the nonsense. You know, they understand that, you know, the stuff that you can control, the stuff you can't, and ultimately you just got to work at the stuff you can control and do what you can. And then when there's stuff that's out of your control, you just got to deal with it, right? And I think I guess that's part of military life, isn't it? Is that you don't know what's going to happen on a day-to-day basis. There is no, oh, you know, we know what the weather's going to be like tomorrow, and this is going to happen. You know, it's sort of, you know, it's reactive, right? As you said, you know, you need to be reactive, and you need to be able to change to a situation very, very quickly, which is, I think, a hell of a life skill. I think whether people learn it through, and again, hardship, right? You talk about hardship, you know, but a lot of people, you know, they find themselves, I think, when they lose relations, and you know, they witness things that you know, are tough in life, right? And I guess you're put right in the midst of that at a very young age, where you're going, right, reality is, this is, you know, you're going to lose people, and I guess that's the tough part of it, right?
Yeah, it's you know, I was just thinking there it's when you're in operations, one of the worst things that could happen to you is you die, your mate dies, or you get captured and tortured. Whereas in day-to-day life, the worst thing that could probably happen to you is, I don't know, you run out of brown sauce when you're making your bacon sandwich, or
that's a true northern thing to say. Let's use a northern example of that. So for everybody listening, what he means by that is it's like run out of brown sauce to put on your butty, on your balm, and everybody's like, "What's a balm?" I don't know what a balm.
I'm a southerner now, anyway. I'm a fake southerner. Or a fake northerner.
We're fake southerners. I'm in that bracket as well. So obviously, you know, you left the military. I'm guessing there's still this adrenaline chasing sort of thing going on, and I know that, you know, one of your, I'd like to say hobbies, but I guess it's a bit of a career, isn't it? You know, so you started motor racing. How did that come about? Are you because the timeline you've just told me, I'm trying to figure out where cars played a role, because I'm like, look, you deployed to the military in whenever. I'm like, hold on. So did you actually pass your test?
Yeah.
Passed your test when?
Car test.
Yeah,
Probably
yeah.
like when I think I did it when I was like 17.
Oh, so you passed your test. So, but you, when have you driven cars in amongst all of this? Am I missing something? Are you out in Afghanistan racing around desert tracks and
you do right? So you do touch in the special forces. You do touch some fast cars and get to drive them around the UK and circuits and stuff, but never racing them and never.
So was that part of your training? Obviously, so obviously everybody gets different. And again, maybe I'm wrong here, but from what I gather, everybody gets kind of different skill sets within the SAS, and they're responsible for different things, right? And I know that you've got a list on your website of things that you're skilled in, which I knew was part of the jumping out of planes is something that you're particularly skilled at, right? And so was driving cars part of that? Because obviously that's part of a security thing, isn't it? I guess you need to. There's a tactical way of driving cars, isn't there? There's a way of protection and blah blah blah. So was that the stuff that you went through?
Yeah, you do train in that kind of stuff, and you train in vehicle wise. You train a massive area of skill sets from big armored vehicles to almost, I'm trying to think what it's called, like evasive driving techniques. So getting out of tight spaces. What to do if your car gets jacked, kidnapping.
You're saying this, and I can see the sides of your mouth just rolling up. You're like, yeah, bit of evasive stuff, and you're like, yeah. I'm thinking, Jay probably enjoyed that bit. So
yeah.
So that was fun,
some UK stuff on the roads and whatnot. They're fun courses to go on. But yeah, you get taught how to handle a car, but not. I mean, getting taught how to handle a car for a 3-week course and then racing a car around one of the UK tracks is completely different.
So where's this love of because obviously it's not the sort of hobby or pastime or blah blah you just randomly get into. It's there must be, what pointed you to that?
Yeah, do you know what? It was during lockdown last year. So my manager Kate, she used to work with the guy who's heading up the Praga team at the minute, Mark. And randomly out of the blue, she dropped him a note and just said, "What have you been up to?" And he's like, "Oh, we should meet. I've got this really exciting project I'm working on." And Praga cars have been around since they've actually got a really rich history, but no one knows who they are. And they've been around since early 1900s. Obviously, it's from Czech Republic, hence the name Prague. And Prague and Czech Republic was communist, so the government turned around to Praga and said, "You're going to build trucks." Turned around to Skoda and said, "You're going to build cars."
And Lada as well. Lada was a
they're all
Skoda, and I'm guessing Praga was in that mix, right?
They were trucks, so they went and built a load of military vehicles and trucks. Then the fall of communism happened, and Praga were left in this predicament of having around 10 to 12, bosses, who were all heavily, influenced from the government. They knew nothing about car manufacturer or truck manufacturer. That's just how communism worked. So they went through this process of going, right, like, who the hell are we? What's our identity? Where do we want to be in the future? Got rid of a load of the bosses and got to a stage where they were like, right, we're a private company. We can do what we want. We're going to carry on building trucks because that's our heritage and we're really good at it. They got into go-karting, so they're really well known in the go-karting world. They've released a plane, so they've built a plane. And so just kind of recently they built this R1 race car, and they built a road version of it. They've also got a Dakar truck, which did really well in last year's Dakar. I think it came 4th or 6th overall.
You fancy a bit of that?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
That's a brutal one, isn't it? Paris Dakar.
Yeah, I'm trying to get into it at the minute. Their truck, they want all the R1 drivers from this season to have a go in the truck at some point. And yeah, I mean, I've got quite a bit of experience driving a desert, so
of course,
to push that experience in and just say, look, I've driven massive armored vehicles in some of the worst deserts in the world. Get me a seat in that Dakar truck.
That'd be mental, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so they've got, so at the minute they're developing this, this hypercar that they hopefully want to launch this year or next year, and it's going to
This is
be
a road vehicle, right?
yeah, this is going to be a road car that's going to be as close to as close to a race car as you can possibly get on a road. And as part of this, they want to kind of grow their heritage and grow their reach. And the way that they're going to do it is produce this R1, this Praga R1 race car, which is what I race now, and have a one make race series. So next year they want their own series within Britcar, which is the overarching series. So you've got like GT3, Britcar. So Britcar's the overarching series, and they'll have a Praga one make race series, which will have 20 of these R1s all starting on the same grid. So this year's the first season of that, and there is, I want to say, 8 Praga R1s, about 6 to 8 Praga R1s that are racing. And yeah, it was, when we met Mark last year, Mark told us the plan of what he had in mind to release this road car and release this one mate race series. And they've got a guest driver program, which means that if you're interested in racing the Praga on track, they will train you. They will, make sure that you've got all the right, similar to what I've done, right? I've gone from a non-racing background to racing these cars, and they'll put you through the same program, and you can either buy an R1 or rent one, or whatever deal that they make, and you'll be on a track racing a Praga against a load of Pragas. And for me, that to have that opportunity was it.
But you're actually racing
a lot of
Praga
boxes.
team though, right?
Yeah.
So you're not, you haven't gone in there like, because obviously motor racing, you can almost buy your way into, right? If you can buy a decent car and you can get a team, because it's an expensive hobby, right? And they want cars on the track, so you can go in, you can buy your car, and you get all the gear and get the pit team and blah blah blah, and obviously pay the fees that they want on the day-to-day basis. But you've actually done this thing, and then they've put you in their team.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing
with no experience.
But I'm guessing you must have been pretty good.
Yeah.
This is where the humble Jay comes out, where he's like, "Oh yeah, it was all right, I guess."
One of those, right? It's probably going to sound cheesy, but I'm racing myself, right? I am trying to get faster and faster every session that I do, and like we said at the start, right? I'm competitive. I'm competitive against myself. I'm competitive against everyone else. And I think for me, I'm in a really good place, because everyone's probably expecting me to come in and be terrible, right? No experience, not be able to keep the car on track, be way off all the pro drivers. And that's good for me, right? Because I have no pressure. I'm not in the car industry. I have no pressure on me. I can just come in. If I was to come in and do really rubbish, it's expected, right?
I think a lot of people thrive on that, though, isn't it? It's that underdog mentality, right? It's like, I like the fact I'm the underdog here.
Yeah.
That gives me something to chase, right?
Yeah, massively. And
right.
And I don't know. I've always been good. I've always been good with physical stuff. So if you say, Jay, go and learn tennis, I could go and learn tennis. Or I've always been pretty good at that kind of stuff. And I'm pretty good at, the way I learn. I'm very good at someone saying, right, you're doing that wrong, do this. And I could quite easily take that information and convert it onto what I need to do. And racing's about that, right? I've got a few coaches. I've got 2 twins at the minute, Ed and Chris, that are coaching me, that are pro racers. And we'll sit, racing's about analytics, right? You can sit down at the end of a track day and see where you need to be faster in the corner, see what what you're doing wrong braking, understand that you can carry way more speed into a corner. And I'm very good at just being able to take that and just go, right, I'm going to go out on the next session and do it this way. And I found, I also don't have the fear element, which probably a lot of people do, where I'm able to, like, if I know I can go faster in a corner, there's an aspect of me that's not going to be able to just go out and go that speed in the corner. But I'm very good at just getting used to it without going, all right, well, if I come off on this corner, I'm probably going to hit that wall. because I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about, whereas I don't know, maybe there are people that haven't experienced certain things in their life or been through things that I've been through, which would go around that corner and just go, oh, the wall, the wall, the wall.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking, I can go faster, I can go faster.
Which again, it's got to correlate to, you know, being in, as you loosely termed them, scraps before, where you've got bullets flying around your head. I mean, I guess it's the same. It's like, look, that could hit me, and then, you know, if you start thinking about it, I would imagine largely it probably is going to hit you, right?
Of course.
You know? So it's like, you know, and I always remember, and this is a real trivial one, but you've done your bike test, right?
Mm.
So when they get you to do the U-turn in the road, right? And when I first started doing that, and I've ridden bikes since I was 8 years old. I've ridden motorbikes since I was 8 years old. So I've gone to do my test, and I'm looking at where I'm going, and you'd always sweep wide. And they always said, look at where you're going instead of where you're heading.
Mm.
And as soon as you turned your head and actually started to look at where you're actually going, you went there, right? And it's like, when you know, you've been out on the bike on the road, and you know, if you see a rock in the road, if you start to look at the rock, you start straying towards it, right?
Yeah.
And you see a pothole, you start straying towards it. So you learn not to do that. You learn to look at it. And obviously this is part of that skill of, I guess, when you did the tactical driving stuff, is that it's about looking way ahead of you, right? It's not looking right in front of you. It's looking, you know, and anticipating what's going to happen and what's coming up and blah, blah, blah. So I guess there's big carryover there, right?
Yeah, massively. Massive, you know, it is all about that. And it's funny, we took those Harley Davidsons up to Scotland last week, and I haven't done much off-road stuff. And the guy that I was with, Tom, he's done loads, right? And so he's like taking the thing it's a big old 1250 adventure bike, right? And he's taking it over the boulders, and I go to take it over the boulders, and I'm looking at the boulders to see what path I take, stall the bike, and like I can't get it over. And it's exactly that, right? You've got to look, you've got to not worry about what the bike's doing under you, because the bike's a piece of physics that'll work.
But I'm guessing
the powers of.
But I'm guessing at that point, Jay, is that Harley have loaned you this bike, right? They've given you it to go and have a play on, right? And I'm thinking these bikes aren't going to be cheap. So I can see where you're going there with I wouldn't be worried necessarily I'm thinking, if I drop this bike on this boulder, what's the repercussions here? And you probably shout.
Tom doesn't care, mate. Tom doesn't care. He just,
I'll take the thing, isn't it? Is stop caring about it, because chances are you'll probably end up stalling it and it'll just go. You know, big dents. How were the bikes?
Yeah, really good, mate. We did drop them a few times, actually. Tom did too, which I'm happy for. But yeah, really good. Like, that's the first time I've ridden an adventure bike. And yeah, like we took him. So I've got a friend up in Scotland, Sam, and yeah, like he got us access to some of the estates, which you know, they film Top Gear on and whatever. So there was no one around, right? So you can just do whatever you want. And yeah, we're doing river crossings with him. You know, taking him completely off road. Like we even took it down this massive hill at one stage, trying to get on some snow so we could ride the bikes on the snow. And yeah, we just had an absolute epic where we just kept getting the bike stuck and just literally had to recover him up the whole hill. But
was there just you two and what, like a camera
yeah, we took a cameraman and like a stills guy and a video guy to shoot some content for the launch of the bike, basically, and just show its capabilities. But yeah, I was blown away. Like I've never done, you know, I want to start doing some enduro stuff now and you know, go and start throwing some enduro bikes around, because you know, a 1250 Harley is a big old bike to try and
well, this goes back to, you know, we were talking before about the Paris Dakar, right? Is that obviously the guys do that on the bikes.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
And I always remember, you know, hell, I used to watch that back in, you know, when I was probably 10, 11 years old, and they used to go on the Super Taniers. And the Super Taniers were like the sort of adventure bike. It was like, if you had one of them, it was, you know, it was the nuts. And then there was another few sort of came on the scene, and obviously they're all doing now. I mean, Ducati do one. The Motorstrada's meant to be really good. The, you know, Harley doing one. I mean, you know, Harley and Buell. Well, Harley used to have Buell as well. I think they've now got
right
again.
Is Buell still going?
I think what happened. I think Buell went bankrupt, didn't they? And then I think Harley then saved them potentially. I could be wrong here, But I know Buell used to make some ridiculous bikes. I mean, the
aesthetically, they were beautiful, weren't they?
Yeah, the Lightning. I always wanted one of the Lightnings, which are brutal. There's flame pour out the exhaust when you start them up. Yeah.
What bikes do you like then, Phil? What bikes do you ride?
Well, I don't have a bike at the moment because my last bike was nicked. I've actually had 3 bikes nicked.
No way.
Yeah, I've had 3 bikes stolen, but I was rode the Street Fighter, Ducati Street Fighter, but the 1098, the big one.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had the Ducati Monster, and then I went to the Street Fighter, and then I ended up buying 2 Street Fighters back to back. I actually got all 3 bikes nicked. So I'd customed. I'll send you a picture of the
out of where, like out of a garage or?
We had a private lockup at the back of where we lived at the time, and I had one stolen from my front door, which was when I used to live in the city. So they cut the chain and they cut the thing and dumped it in the back of a van, and then the other one they'd actually dragged the whole bike, and they found the previous one, the Street Fighter before. They found that in a container ship down in Dover in 2 parts, but they knew from the serial number and the code that was on my lock, so the lock was still attached to it. They just lifted it, but hey, yeah, I'll send you a picture of it. But yeah, I've always been into bikes.
I like Ducatis.
Yeah, they're pretty brutal.
I've got my eyes set on the Hypermotard at the minute.
Yeah, that always
821 or 871.
Yeah, they get the crazy reviews there. They harp on about that as being a super sort of,
just looks fun, right?
Yeah.
Looks fun, bounce, like upright, just throw it around corners. Yeah, just have some fun on it.
Well,
drive really safely in the speed limit.
Yeah,
stick to the highway code.
Exactly. The only way I do it. Yeah, because they withdrew the 1098 because it was too heavy. So people couldn't. What was happening? People were stopping at lights and just falling.
Oh, the Hypermotard 1098.
No, this was the Street Fighter, the one I had.
Right. Yeah.
So I bought the 1098. So they stopped making the 1098 in I think it was about 2012. It might have been a little bit after that, but they stopped making it and they only made it in the 900 engine. Mm-hmm. So the 1098 was big, heavy. It was it was
big torque monster.
Yeah, brutally fun to drive to ride, but yeah.
I had one of those. The Harley send me bikes now and then. They sent me down the Electra Glide.
Oh, very nice.
The big LA cop bike.
Yeah.
It's got the 2 speakers. You can literally be on a motorway at 70 miles an hour and helmet on, and you can hear tunes coming out the radio. But weirdly, the only literally the only radio stations I could find are like rock hits from the 90s, like soul FM, jazz FM.
Rock hits from the 90s. What else would you want on a Harley?
You can't, mate. If I wanted to find some modern music, it just doesn't come on. I'm sure it just doesn't play through the speakers. It's like no.
Oh,
George Michael, yes.
We're not playing that. Anyways, right, we're on a tangent here because I'm sure that many of our listeners probably aren't into bikes and they're going, what are those 2 going on about?
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about your book. Now I didn't realize it was out because there was a miscommunication, because I'd read your website and made an error with respect to the thing. So I didn't realize it was out. Otherwise, I grabbed a copy, which I'm going to grab a copy anyways. But you've got a copy of it behind you there. So do you just want to? Mm-hmm. So you've just brought a book out. Do you want to?
Yeah, well, it's been out for a bit now. But
what's it about?
Soldier. So it's basic. So I just wanted to take all the lessons and valuable stuff and knowledge and experience that I learned through being in the military, whether that's being on selection or being involved in combat and war, and just try and condense that and put it into a book, and kind of intermingle it with stories or some sort of anecdotes of when I was serving. And it's hard, you can't, and I never would. I'd never write a book about my time in the Special Forces because there's a lot of stuff there that you can't talk about and that you never will. But that's also 10 years of my life, and there's a lot of valuable stuff in that 10 years, and it's trying to I wanted to get that over to people in the book. So weirdly, when I thought about how to write the book, we use mnemonics in the military quite a lot. So everything is a mnemonic, whether it's learning the principles of an ambush or learning how to give a fire control order, you use these mnemonics. So I wanted to, the book's called Soldier. I wanted to use the mnemonic Soldier So I had to condense each chapter into each letter of the word. So for example, S is self, and self's all about, self-discovery and yourself, and how, if you understand, what makes you tick and what doesn't, then how that you can better transfer that into the world. So yeah, like O's opportunity, L's leadership, D's danger, I's intelligence, E's excellence, and R's resilience.
Amazing. Now I look forward to reading that. It's right up my street. I'm not big into anything that isn't kind of factual based.
Yeah, same. I can't do fiction.
Yeah, you've got an array of books actually behind you that most of them I think are actually on my bookshelf. But it's
what have you got, like your top 3 at the minute, Phil? Because you read a lot of books, right?
Yeah, most recent ones I've read are probably Deep Work, which I touched on before.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what Relentless. I read, that's an older book.
Yeah, I think I've got Relentless somewhere.
Yeah, that's an older book, which was pretty cool. And there's the other one. Sorry, I keep going away from the mic there.
I read the Matthew McConaughey one recently, Greenlight.
Right. Yeah, I've heard very good reviews about that.
Yeah, it wasn't something that I'd usually read, but I was hooked on it. Like, just the way that he's written it, and it's one of those books that every time I pick up and read it, I feel better for reading it. Really? Like, it puts me in a happy mood, puts me in a good mood.
Yeah, no, I will check that out at some point. It's one of them ones where it's like that movie that you're not really buzzed about watching, and then you watch it. Oh my God, that was amazing. It's one of them.
I'd heard quite a lot of good things about it. So I just thought, you know what, buy it. And it's actually like, I find it hard to read kind of really deep books.
You've got Haskell's up there as well, haven't you?
Yeah, have you read Haskell's?
Yeah, no, I was on his podcast a few weeks ago.
I bought the book, but I think the audio is way better.
Yeah,
like had me in stitches.
He's a funny guy.
Yeah. I was walking around the heath here just laughing to myself. I love the best one is the story that he does about the Kiwi drinking game, where they all go off. So you turn up, and you turn up with 6 beers, and you all bring 6 beers to the party. But then for the first whatever of this party, you've got to go away, find a tree, climb it, drink the 6 beers, and you all come back together. It's just like, what? So you sit on your own.
Very random.
On your own, drinking 6 beers.
Do you drink?
Yeah, I do drink. Yeah, do you know what I like? Drinking.
I don't know why I randomly asked that. I just think it's that military discipline. I'm like, do you drink?
But it's a hot topic these days. I do drink. I enjoy drinking, but I also enjoy not drinking. So I'll go through.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, I enjoy the feeling of, like, I am at my 100% when I've not drunk for a week, 2 weeks. Right, I can mentally feel that, physically feel that. I feel it in my skin, feel it in my performance in a gym. But I also enjoy drinking, and I know that if you're with friends and you're drinking, then you can have such a good time.
Yeah.
So like, I just try and balance those things through my life. It's like, when I feel like drinking, I don't get caught up about the effects of it, and I drink and have fun, and then
you enjoy it. Right?
And if I drink too much and get hungover the next day, then if I had a good time, then it's excusable, right?
Yeah.
But I've started drinking too. Do you like tequila?
Love tequila. I have 2 bottles of tequila in my office that sit there. So
what do you drink?
Well, I'm drinking Terramana at the moment.
Right, the rocks.
Yeah, it's very good.
See, I like the Patron.
Yeah, so Patron would have been my go-to, but I thought, right, I'm going to get a couple of bottles of Terramana. So I've got the gold, and I've got the blank, and and it's I'm torn between them both. One's a little bit more refined, the Reposado is a little bit more refined, obviously.
Yeah,
the Blanco is kind of a bit of ice where we go.
Yeah,
and
I like, so with the Patron, I like that it's 3 ingredients and that's it. There's no shit in it, right? There's no additives, flavorings. So you are drinking the purest alcohol, or the purest, and it's not healthy, right? But it's the cleanest drink that you will find on the market. So if I try to just, and I appreciate that for what it is. I can quite happily have, an añejo on the rocks.
Yeah,
I just drink that, sip that throughout the night with mates, and the next day I wake up and I don't feel bad.
Yeah, no, I quite often just have a on ice on a Friday evening or something like that, and it's a substantial one. I mean, I'll go through a bottle in about 5 glasses.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, same. It's easy, right? It's so easy to drink
yeah,
it.
I didn't realize it.
I pour the biggest glass and I put some ice in, maybe a dash of lime, and I drink it, and I'm just like, it's gone.
Yeah,
So I'll have another one. And it's like, it's
yeah, it
gone.
just creeps up. I was, my wife got me a bottle for Father's Day actually, which was fortunate because she must have looked and realized the other one was nearly empty. So
Yeah.
but alcohol aside, I know that you utilize kind of how would we describe these? It's almost like a biohacking thing, right? So you're kind of into performance. I know you're into performance. I know that you're all about, how do I get my brain and my body to perform at this high level. And I know there's certain things that you sort of habitually do that are kind of out there, they're kind of out the box to some degree. But then the stuff that you do that isn't kind of out the box that you probably don't talk about as much because it's probably not as interesting. So what does kind of a day in the life of Jay Morton look like? So how do you start your day?
I like cold water to start the day.
And when you say I like cold water, we're not talking a glass of cold water, are we?
Nah, so getting cold water on the body. I think, I can't do it now so much because it's not that cold, but in the winter I'll fill up a bin and jump in the bin at first thing in the morning just to, at the minute the bin's probably about 15 degrees, so it's not really cold, so it just defeats the object. But in the winter, if I can get up, and the first thing that I do is go downstairs and not even think about anything, not even check your phone, just have nothing in your head other than the fact that you're walking outside and jumping in this cold bin. I find the mental aspect of that, and going back to the discipline aspect of that, and then the endorphin release, or the cold shock protein release of being in that cold water, the stimulant effect that it has in your brain. I think there's no better way to start the day. Like if I get up and do the cold bin on a winter's day, anything else after that is easy.
You said about not the best way there isn't a better way to start the day, but I'm sure you referred to bacon rolls and brown sauce before. Like, hold on, there's a discrepancy here. There's a discrepancy here.
Hypothetical bacon rolls and brown sauce.
Like there's no better way to start the day than a bacon roll and brown sauce.
And I come back, I have Kellogg's,
human performance optimization,
Weetabix, ton of sugar on top. I think that's the best thing, right? And then I like meditation. I do like meditation. I flick in and out of it.
In the sense of, what does meditation look like for you? Because we talk about meditation a lot, and people are kind of like, I don't really fancy sitting with my legs crossed humming for an hour.
Like a hemp onesie.
Yeah. With
incense.
Right. And people have this really weird, when you talk about meditation, it does have that kind of wafty sort of, I don't want to, because I'm not a hippie sort of scenario. So what does meditation look like for you?
Yeah, for me, it's just an app. I use Sam Harris's Headspace, and it's convenience, right? I've never been to a meditation practice or camp or anything. It's a personal thing. It's anything from 10 minutes to 20 minutes in the morning. And I sit down in the living room, just make sure I'm sat upright, and I literally put the app on, close my eyes, and the app tells me how to meditate. And yeah, that's it. And like I said, I flick in and out of it. Sometimes I'll be religious and do it every day for a week, and sometimes I'll not do it for 3 days, come back into it. Sometimes I'll have a month off.
What benefits do you feel from that?
Do you know, like I weirdly got into it. So I went and lived in Germany for 2 years whilst I was serving, and trained to be a mountain guide. And at the time, we had to get up to a level of skiing that was A, sufficient to be able to pass the course, but B, all the other guys that were on the course had skied all their life. And this was probably the first time that we'd ever been taught how to ski. And at the time, Hans, he was high-level Olympic, ski instructor. He sat like number 2 in the German Olympic ski committee, or some crap that he'd waffle on about in German. And we were all sat having dinner one night, and he was just like, all the German Olympic ski team meditate. And he's like, this is the reason. It's a ski performance enhancer. It connects. The way that they meditated was all about connecting the mind to the body to the skis. and all being as one in a movement as you ski down.
Yep. Which
So I
get,
was like,
as someone who skis, I kind of get that.
So yeah, I was like, right, I'm going to dig into this. And obviously there's a lot of literature online about meditation. But I downloaded Headspace and just started doing Headspace. And that was probably 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I found, the first thing I found, Phil, was, so if you've never meditated before, like, we are constantly in this autopilot setting.
Yep.
You don't know why you feel like you want a cup of tea, or you don't know why you pick up a book and read it, or you don't know why you decide to walk outside and go for a walk. You are pretty much just on autopilot, and at the same time there is a series of thoughts that are just circulating around your head that you don't really have any control of. You don't really see them for what they are. You don't witness them, and you're just in this mode, right? And everyone's in it. And I think for me, meditation was something that you actually stop and go, all right, well, I've got thoughts going around in my head. And it's like, oh, weird. Like, if I move my hand, I'm actually moving my hand and I can feel my hand move it.
Yeah.
Whereas you never think about that, right? And it's whether it has an effect in life or not, or means you do things better in life or not, but actually to just go, right, I'm breathing. Like, I never actually just gone, right, I'm actually breathing. This is me breathing in and out. It's an autonomous thing that you do. Which then translate into other things of like, all right, well, I really like chocolate at 6 p.m. Like, why do I really like chocolate at 6 p.m? And then even food, right? Like, you like a hamburger, but why do you like a hamburger? And if you actually stopped and ate a hamburger and thought about the taste and the texture, it's and it was just, I just, like, from that point, it just gave me a different, I don't know, you just, without trying to sound too wacky, it's like you are awake in life.
It's awareness.
You're not awake.
I think it's just awareness of your surroundings, right? Is
Yeah,
that you don't take a moment to go, look, and I always go back to, what I used to do really was kind of consulting on things like nutrition and blah, blah, blah. And ultimately it's the same thing. A lot of it is just awareness, is going to someone, do you actually acknowledge what you eat? And then just going that slightly deeper level and going, do you actually acknowledge why you like it? Is it the texture? Is it the taste? Is it the palatability? Is it, what is it? Is it how it feels in your mouth? Is it, and there's all these different aspects. And obviously, food manufacturers, they research all these aspects and they go, look, people want a bit more crunch. People want a bit more this, that, the other. And, the sweet and salt thing is all, is a big thing now. Everybody's like,
scientists.
Yeah. Everybody likes sweet and salt.
Scientists doing it.
Salted caramel. Everybody loves a bit of salted caramel. And there's a real science behind it. But then when you start to talk about it in the perspective you almost, you put this disclaimer in front of it and go, without sounding too wacky, but it's actually just rational thought, right? It's like, take a bite of something and go, why do I like that? And then you can start to analyze things a little bit deeper, I think, and then figure out and refine what you like. And then you go, right, I like a hamburger, but I like this particular hamburger from this particular place because of these particular reasons. And I think that's that's an acknowledgement of the world around you. I mean, you talk about meditation, and I think meditation nowadays is it's almost like an extreme, but it's an extreme that we require as a prerequisite. And again, I talked about, Cal Newport stuff and deep work, which it's a recent book I've read. So therefore I mentioned it on like my last 3 podcasts, but it's this whole thing of being able to just switch off. And I think anybody would benefit from that in whatever guise it might be. And we talked about it before, obviously being in combat for you, is that, meditation is a moment where people will turn off their phone, turn off the TV, turn off the music, and actually just focus on almost nothing, right? And I think that's such a critical thing for people to be able to do, to be able to switch off and just have a bit of your own headspace, which, when you're busy people, which you inherently are, I am, most of the people listening to this podcast will be performance driven, high performing people who are 100 miles an hour, probably taking caffeine left, right, and center. And they're trying to chase this kind of thing, but they don't ever take a moment just to stop and have a little think and go, and I think that, that what you've put across there, I think is exactly that. I think you've explained something, but then give this kind of disclaimer at the start of it to go, without it sounding a bit too wacky, but I don't think it is wacky. I think
it's like the 2 biggest things are, I get the most out of my life.
Yeah.
And what was the other one? Completely forgot. basically I get the most out of my life, and I can't remember the second one. So I'm going to try and come back to that.
It's because it's that headspace. It's freeing up that headspace. That's
Calming.
Calming, yeah.
Calming. Like it has, especially like people like us, right? We're busy people. If you're sat in front of a computer responding to emails, next minute you're on a call, next minute you're trying to cram a lunch down in 20 minutes that you've not even made, next minute you're doing this, you are constantly in that fight and flight zone, right? And you can easily get yourself so into it that you're lost in this fight and flight zone. And it gets to the end of the day, and sometimes I find it hard to come down from that, because you're like, whoa, today was busy, wasn't it? Like, and that's where, you might have a glass of wine. Some people might have a glass of wine or whatever. Whereas I find if I can, like the cold bin does exactly the same. If I get that meditation in the morning, you transfer that 10 minutes of meditation throughout your day, I find like I can just sit in this, probably is it the parasympathetic state throughout the day. And I can sit in this parasympathetic state, answering emails, go to the gym doing it. And I'm not less productive. I'm probably more productive, because I can just go, all right, Jay, you've just given 30 minutes to doing emails. What? Go and make dinner. And I don't feel rushed to then go and make dinner, because I'm like, and it's like rushing, right? I sometimes analyze rushing and think, do I actually do things quicker because I'm rushing? Or do I just feel rushed doing them in the same time and maybe save 30 seconds?
No, I get you. You kind of almost create this frantic environment where you're like, I need to be frantic. It works.
It's quicker. It's definitely quicker.
And then you're like, no, it doesn't.
It's like,
and this is this modern thing where, people have watches, and I have a watch, I'm not wearing it today, but I have a watch that reminds me to breathe. We got to that stage in life where you've got to remind a human being just to breathe. I'm like, damn it. I knew there was some reason why I went unconscious there. I'm like, and it's just this bizarre, we live in this kind of bizarre world where stuff like meditation is seen as a bit wacky, but really meditation is just a bit of space and a bit of time just to think to yourself and, compose yourself. And as is jumping in a bucket of ice, it's just a different way of doing it. I mean, do you journal?
As is the gym, right?
Yeah,
as gym.
Right?
That hour that you spend in the gym, and you come out and feel way better than you went in. And during the gym, you're not really thinking about much other than your next lift or whatever it is you're doing. It's the same thing.
Exactly that. And that's that kind of break away from the stresses of normal life, right? So you go in and physically stress yourself instead of mentally stress yourself, which I always find a little bit of a, it's a balancing act, and it's a juggling act there. But then there's also the time where you've just got to recover, right? And I think that's a huge element of modern life now, is that people's sleep's crap, and this is obviously, why we've developed what we've developed. Human 24 is all about that. And we talk about performance, but we talk about this kind of 24-hour spectrum where most people don't sleep very well. Most people don't get up very well. They lack consistency, they lack routine, they're frantic, they're running around, they don't take this moment to compose themselves, take a second to get out, get some sunlight, and just all these basic things that again, you tend to put that kind of disclaimer in front of them and go, sounds a bit wacky, but, and I'm like, expose yourself to a ton of sunlight in the morning. Sounds a bit wacky. Well, does it? Is it really that wacky? So
but if you were to go, right, here is you feeling at your best, and these are the things that do that, you probably have gym, and you probably have like sleep. Like if you were to percentage it, right,
hydration.
The things that you do outside of the gym probably make you feel way better than the actual gym aspect itself. But we've become so hyper focused on this gym and exercise aspect that we've kind of misplaced all the rest of the aspects, right?
Yeah, totally with you.
I've recently nailed my sleep, Phil. Proper nailed it. Yeah, because I've probably gone again, right? I've probably gone so long being not aware of my sleep. So I was, this year I was just like, right, you seem to have everything else in a semi-decent condition, but you still failed. Or I just wanted to get my sleep up from about 7.5 hours to, past 8 hours every night, and just have that consistent, and just go, I wonder if I feel better from that. So I bought, the ULA pads.
Yes.
I bought one of those. Absolute game changer.
Yeah.
Absolute game changer. Yeah. Because, I set that to anything from 17 to 20 degrees, depending on what the temperature is outside, and how much I've exercised. Like if I've done, I'm running a lot now because I'm doing the London Marathon, so I'm just trying to build up to that. So if I go out and run, come back in, I know my core temperature is going to be hotter at night, so I'll drop it down to 17, 16, and I don't wake up hot. I use the same. I've got a winter duvet, so it's massive.
Yeah.
I can get right underneath it, and the temperature of the bed just stays the same all the way.
Tried a
through the
weighted
night.
blanket?
No.
Honestly,
Is
weighted blanket.
it?
They are ridiculous. I bought my wife one. I thought it was a thoughtful gift. A weighted blanket, but it's and it is incredible. I mean, they use them with people who have anxiety issues and problems like that, and it just knocks you out. I mean, try it. Yeah,
I've got blackout blinds up. The kids ones that just Velcro over your window.
Yeah, very familiar with them.
Yeah. But I tell you what, I use a sleep supplement as well, which has got L-theanine, GABA. Is it GABA?
Yeah, GABA. It must be an American.
Valerian, and a bit of melatonin, and that just
use
adapt. It's got stuff.
Yeah.
That's the one you sent me, right?
Yeah. Have you not used it yet?
Right. Yeah, but I've actually finished.
Yeah. Sleep.
Yeah, but sleep, mate, just the proper nailed it. I'm doing 8 hours easy. But the worst thing is that now, if I sleep anywhere else, if I sleep in a hotel, sleep at a friend's house,
it's never quite the same.
I hate it. I'm just like,
pillows, mattress different.
There's light coming through the curtains, and you stuffy at night, and there's a cat clawing at your door. But
all good. Well, 8 hours is impressive. It's very impressive. 8 hours.
Probably did 8.5 last night.
Did you? That is a good hit. I'm notoriously not bad. I'm very good at sleeping. My sleep's good. If you go by any data and things like this, mine's always very good. But I'm a very short sleeper. I've never kind of pushed that. If I go anywhere above about 7 hours, I feel wretched.
Yeah.
Yeah. It actually makes me more tired.
Do you nap?
No.
And you're fine off 7 hours. That's good though. I'd rather be like that than.
Yeah, I did. I've tried it before where I've kind of tried to force, particularly, when I went self-employed, it was like literally I can control my own time here. I can do whatever I want. So, and I used to do between 7 and 8. I used to push to. I'd very rarely get to 8 without lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, agitated, wanting to get up. So, when I'd hit 7, I'd feel wretched the next day. My kind of sweet spot is around about the 6 mark. And I know that goes against the grain. It goes against the common out, and people would tell me. But again, we've had a couple of sleep experts that on the podcast, and I've talked to them about it personally, and sort of said, look, is there an issue with this? He said, no, because the ballpark is 6 to 8 hours. Is what you should aim at. But obviously, it does vary between people, and you get your owls and your larks, and they talk about the different kind of genotypes and things like this. And they said it's quite common. And I mean, I genuinely feel terrible if I have anything more than 7 hours. So I actually, I'll spend the next day yawning all day. So it makes me more tired.
Yeah. See, I'm like, I can highly function off 7.5.
Yeah.
If I have, but I'd probably get to a stage around 3-4 p.m. where I have an hour or 2 hours of feeling pretty tired. But if I get above 8, like I am solid throughout the day. Like I could be in a meeting at 9 o'clock at night and feel fine. Yeah. But then still switch off at 10.
Amazing.
Did you read Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep?
No.
That's a good book.
Matthew Walker, While We Sleep.
Why We Sleep.
Why We Sleep.
And it's an easy read as well, considering he's a sleep scientist.
Yeah, I'll look at that. Cool. We could go on forever.
I know.
Is there anything else that you kind of, tips and tricks or anything else that you do that's kind of out there? Obviously,
you asked about journaling, didn't you?
Yeah. Do you do journaling?
Don't I've tried. try and I feel like I don't get anything from it. And maybe it's something that you need to commit to for, a year before you actually start to.
I don't journal per se. I do like a brain dump, which
Yeah.
I guess you could call journaling. It's,
Yeah.
for me, I need to clear my head. I've not, since I was a kid, I always used to sleep. I always had a very busy mind. Like you said, when you were a kid, you were always very hyperactive and, needed somewhere to channel that energy. My mind was always very busy. So I had a lot of stress when I was a kid for various reasons. And I couldn't fall asleep unless I had music or the TV on. So it was almost like this white noise that wasn't white noise. I had to have something that was creating commotion. Otherwise I couldn't, and if I turn and instantly, if I turn the lights off and turn the TV off, turn the music off, instantly I just go into this place where it's like I'm in this maze and can't get out of it. And it's, just documenting things tasks to do kind of thing. And I think when you have your own business and things like this, you do get cluttered with all of this stuff. I've got these emails to answer and blah, blah, blah. I have a good friend
the never-ending to-do list.
Yeah. And I have a friend of mine who he's adamant, and he learned this years ago. He was like, look, he goes, my last task of every day is to clear my inbox, like literally clears it. So when he goes in, when he goes to bed at night, he has 0 things in his inbox. He files them, he puts them wherever. I've got like, I think 100 and something thousand messages in my inbox.
Yeah.
Some of them are filed, but he clears it. He goes right down to 0. Yeah. He operates about 3 or 4 different businesses. So his inbox is like bombarded every day. But that's something that he does. And, habits like that, I think are really relevant in today's world because people are so busy in their minds and, the space. And I'll always go back to riding a motorbike. The main reason I bought a car and a motorbike when I was, when I sort of first went self-employed, I made a point of buying a very fast car and a very fast motorbike. And because I knew that when I drove them, I had to be completely in that moment. Otherwise I could cause myself problems, and again, drove them very sensibly. But for me, I would get on my bike in an evening. So if my mind was busy, I'd get on my bike and I'd just ride for an hour because I knew that there was no point in there where I could think anything but about the road ahead. Because otherwise it was dangerous for me. And obviously I'd ride into central London and I'd go the other way and head off towards Brighton and blah, blah, blah. And it was this kind of space for me. And riding a bike was very much, that's why I started riding road bikes. I was rode off-road bikes, but it was, that's what that was for me. It was a space thing. And it was kind of like,
I get that on the bike. And there's been a few evenings recently when the weather's been nice and you got to the end of the day and I'm just like, it's been a busy day. And it's like, again, right. Some people are going and pour themselves a glass of wine.
Yeah.
But it's that switch off moment of I jump on the bike, I'm in the country, I ride out on the country roads and just try and get into a flow of like, and it was the electric glide at the time, so it's not like a fast bike, it's just big clunky old thing, but it's like just getting into a flow of like the corners and you just come back and I was just come back with a smile on my face, just like
get into bed,
feel better.
Yeah, no, I get you completely.
Hey, I do.
Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say like the journal thing. I do similar, right? I do brain dumps every now and then. And do you revisit them or do you literally get rid of it and then that's it?
I revisit them the next morning.
Right.
So the last thing I'll do at night before I leave my office is I'll write down everything that needs to be done the next day. So I'm then not thinking about it for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
And then that sits on my desk. Doesn't sit by my bed. Because if it sits by my bed, I have this tendency to
think about it.
In the middle of the night, I think about it. I'm disconnected from it. So it sits on my desk. It's right here in front of me. And it's just this real scribbly kind of list of, I've got boxes next to them and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it just allows me to just go, right, I know what needs to be done tomorrow. And if there's other stuff, so if midway through the evening I get an email or something like that, and I'll depending on what's going on in the evening, depends on whether I'll look at my phone or not. And if I do and I get an email about something, I'll just again pop through to my office. My office is on the ground floor, so it's everything's through there. We've got the living room, blah blah blah, and I'll just pop through and I'll just put it on there, and then that's done. So again, it isn't another thing that's wedged in my head for going to bed with, because I don't want to lie in bed and I don't want to be thinking about, I need to reply to this email. And what should I say in this email? And what should I do with this? And what should I do with that? And I just don't want that. So I try and clear all of that. And I think there's numerous ways of doing it, isn't there? I think there's a million ways to kind of proverbially skin a cat, isn't there? So it's,
Yeah.
you know, which I think
I find
is the weirdest phrases ever, but nevertheless.
skin a cat, yeah, you'd never do it. But I find with all these things, you know, with all the hacks and tips and tricks and health and stuff like that, I find what I've found recently is, you know, I don't know if you're like this, but I've always been all in or nothing. And recently, I don't know whether it's with increasing that age number or whatever it is, that I find that now it's more about having discipline over not having as much discipline on everything. As in, like, I could quite easily say that, you know, I went to the gym twice last week, and I'm happy with that because I fit those 2 sessions in. They were productive sessions. They're conducive to what I want to do. I wasn't stressing my body too much. I still slept and rested. Whereas, like, I don't know, maybe I would have beaten myself up about not getting that 3rd session in or that 4th session in. And I find, like, the older I get, it's like when you know, people might go, oh, some guy who's like special forces, I bet he's super regimented. I bet he's up at, you know, 6 or 7 or whatever, and he goes straight into that cold bin, straight into that meditation, like gets straight up, like writes down what he's going to do that day. You know, he's in the gym at the same time every day, and it's like, I don't know, maybe I've never been like that for a start, but I don't know. I think you said it before, that balance of, right, I need to do enough that I am living a life that I want to live, and I've got a healthy body and mind that are conducive to that. So what does that mean, right? I need to go to a gym. I need to lift weights because I want muscle mass, and I want to be able to, you know, carry that muscle mass later on in life. I want a good education, and I want you know, a good mind, and, you know, I want to have a calm mind, and I want to be fucking happy, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with saying I want to be happy.
Know, and again, that's one of the things that people would disclaimer in front of it and go, might sound lofty, but I want to be happy.
And I want to be happy with me. Like, and like everyone goes, everyone does that thing like, oh man, like happiness is, you can't aim to be happy, you go aim to be. It's like, shut up, mate. Like, if I'm happy every day, that means I'm happy every day. It's like, yeah, I'm not always going to be happy every day, but it's like one of those things that you should aim for. And it's like all those things, right, would say, you know, I think with me, probably to be the happiest that I can be, I've got to relax, be disciplined over not being as disciplined. If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm still disciplined because I've got a reason why I'm not being as disciplined over
stepping away from obsession, right? Stepping away from obsession, isn't it? And being able to do, you know, and I've had points in my life where, oh my God, I could have told you to the gram what I ate per day. And you know, when I was training and what time, you know, it was like what's his name? Denzel Washington.
Rain Man.
Rain Man. Denzel Washington in The Equalizer, where he's literally on his clock all the time. It was literally like that. It was horrendous. You know, he used to set an alarm for when to eat, but that formed a lot of stuff for me. And that,
for sure.
And I think that was a part of that journey. And I think without that extreme of that discipline, I would never get what I get now, what I understand now. And I think that's part of that, you know, that experience of, and again, I think part of the reason I was a good coach, because I kind of got it. I was, look, I understand what the nth degree of this is, but I also understand what the average person out there sort of wants. And I think you mold yourself to that average person that you want to be, rather than, you know, people go, oh, average person. And, you know, it's your kind of average. You want to sort of meet, you know, where you're still performing, you're still achieving stuff on a day-to-day basis, but you're also happy with everything else that goes on around it. I mean, you know, I'm happy when I work. I love working, but I also love spending time with my family. I also love spending time with my friends. I also love going to the gym and blah, blah, blah. And there are days where I get that balance completely wrong. I spend my entire day from, you know, 5 o'clock in the morning all the way through to 10 o'clock at night. And I never leave this office. And I'm like, I got that wrong today. I get really got that wrong, you know, and I, you know, I'll put off the gym a bit. I'll get in the gym in a little bit. And then I don't, because I've got an email or I've got something else to do and blah, blah, blah. And then I feel bad about it. And it is that, I think you're right. It's that kind of just getting that balance between it. And I think there is that.
That's health. That's health, right?
And that's that expectancy of, you know, ex-military people look at you and go, oh my God, he must be super, you know, regimented and disciplined. And I guess he kind of bored of that. And I guess it probably wasn't like that anyways. I think that's an assumption, isn't it? People are like,
well, it's when you're in, you're a grown up, right? And you know, when when the whistle blows and it's time to go to work, you're expected to be in the best, you know, in the best position and shape that you can be in to do that job, right? And that's expected of you being a special forces soldier. No one goes, go to the gym this time, you know, so many times a week. No one says go running. No one says do all this stuff. But it's like you're a man, right? You're an experienced soldier. You should know what you need physically and mentally to start each and every day.
And that carries on into life, right? Is that what we're looking at? And a lot of the educational stuff we do, and the reason we talk to people like yourself is that we want to kind of figure out, or help people to figure out for themselves what that looks like, and what is an ideal performance day. And there's certain things that are stable amongst, you know, and again, these are things that you've probably heard me talk about a million times, and things like, you know, get up at a consistent time. And there's a whole load of science behind that. There's a whole load of rationale behind that. And there's a whole load of reasoning behind, you know, the way your biological system works is that it's going to appreciate that. It's like you saying, I need a certain amount of sleep, but we also know there's a variance between people. So it's figuring out what that perfect amount of sleep is, and also the depth of the sleep, and is it, you know, is it conducive with recovery, and all these different things. And I think there's some really cool metrics out there. There's some really cool tracking devices. There's a lot of tech you were talking about, that, you know, the blanket that you use, and all of these things. But I think sometimes it can just get a bit overcomplicated, and people overthink it to some degree, right?
Yeah, and it's having a bit of like leniency on all that as well, right? Like, understand that you like a bar of chocolate, and that you like to drink a beer or red wine, or sometimes you like to stay up till 1 a.m. watching a movie, and you still have to be up at 7 o'clock.
And that's okay. And that's okay, right? And it's that it's okay, you know. And you know, people go on these guilt trips about, you know, I had a bar of chocolate. I'm like, you had a bar of chocolate? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah.
That's always my first question. I'm like, did you enjoy it?
What if you have 4 and feel sick afterwards, Phil?
But my clients used to come in and they go, I had a bar, and they'd have this look of guilt on their face, and they go, I had a bar of chocolate yesterday. And they'd always be shocked by me, because I go, how was it? Was it good?
Yeah.
And if they came back to me and said it was disappointing, I'm like, look, we need to review that, because it shouldn't be. If you're going to eat a bar of chocolate, if it's disappointing, and this is always this thing, and again, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but, you know, like with food, right? And you talked about hamburgers before. I'm like, there's nothing worse than eating some high calorie food that should be palatable and delightful and enjoyable and all these things, and potentially with friends and blah, blah, blah. The food's bad.
Yeah, I know, mate. I hate that, honestly.
That's the
like
worst.
A bad burger. When you have a dry piece of cake.
Yeah.
I'm just like, man, come on.
I'll take one bite, and I don't care what I've done for it. I'm putting it back down again.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm sorry. I know it is wasteful, but I'm not eating that crap, because I'm just about to consume 400 calories in about 4 mouthfuls. I want it to be good, right? You know what I mean? And this was always the thing that my clients were always like, oh, why did you ask me that? I thought you were going to like persecute me for I'm like, no, did you enjoy it? I said, because if you didn't, we need to review it and make sure next time we pick up a chocolate bar, it's a good one, you know. And it's, but anyways, we go off on a tangent. Hey, Jay, we've been on for nearly 2 hours, and I'm very conscious that you're a busy man, and, you know, you've got stuff to do, but massive thank you for coming on and just telling us about your story and blah, blah, blah. Your book, just so people, Amazon, I'm assuming, yes?
Yeah, you can get it off Amazon.
Amazon, Waterstones, direct from you through your website?
You can get signed ones off the website, personalized signed ones. But yeah, soldier respect is earned. Amazon's the best place.
JayMorton.com.
JayMortonofficial.com.
JayMortonofficial.com, because Jay Morton, the other Jay Morton, came along and wasn't official.
Yeah, I think you get those people that buy up people's websites, don't you? Because I went to buy on JayMorton.com. It's like $4,000.
It's gone. Yeah, somebody snapped it up, and it's going to sit there until there's a Jay Morton comes along who's so desperate for it that he's going to pay $4,000 for it. JayMortonofficial.com. Get a signed copy on there, because it'll be worth some money in years to come when you're a super successful racing driver.
Yeah.
All good.
Cheers, Phil, mate.
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
it.
you so much, and we will speak again soon.